My name's Chris Jones. I'm one of the tutors on the ALT programme, and you're about to see a short interview with Professor Yrjö Engestrom. Yrjö is a professor both at Helsinki University and at San Diego University. He splits his time between the two institutions. He's been a writer, prolific writer over many years now on educational and organisational issues, and he's particularly associated with activity theory. We're going to ask him 5 or 6 questions, which will be shown in short clips following this.
I work in 2 places. I work at the University of Helsinki, where I direct a research center called Center for Activity Theory and Developmental Work Research. And I also work in San Diego at the University of California, San Diego, where I'm at the Department of Communication and also in the Laboratory of Comparative Human Cognition. So I kind of move both geographically between 2 very different countries and cultures, and also between disciplines. So in Helsinki, my home base is education, and more specifically adult education, in terms of the disciplines. And in San Diego, I'm at the Department of Communication, so my professorship there is in communication, which is a rather odd combination. But I think both education and communication as disciplines, at their best, they are really multidisciplinary by their very nature. They should actually be at the sort of crossroads of different social sciences and humanities, and sort of bring together the micro and the macro, the agency and structure, the process and the structure, so to speak, and make them speak to each other. So I think that's where I feel that I should be, at such a kind of a boundary, and it's a risky place to be a little bit, because you may end up on no man's land. On the other hand, it's a good place if you can move and cross those boundaries. It's a very good place because you get an audience and you also get ideas in multiple fields.
You mentioned activity theory, which you've been very closely identified with. Could you explain a little about that approach and say something about how it's useful in understanding learning, and in particular learning where it's dealing with new technologies?
Yeah. Well, activity theory, or cultural historical activity theory as its full name is, it was originated in Soviet Russia in the 1920s. The initial father figure was Lev Vygotsky and his close colleagues and disciples, Alexander Luria and Alexei Leontiev. And their agenda was to revolutionize psychology, to go beyond behaviorism and various sort of biologically inspired approaches, to bring in culture into the understanding of human functioning. So to see human beings as culturally mediated, always embedded in some activity which has its own tools and its own language, its own communities. In that sense, I think for me, activity theory in its current stage is very much an approach that tries to radically expand our notion of what is the proper unit of analysis of such processes as learning, for instance. So learning is not limited to what happens underneath the skin of a singular individual, but learning should be understood as, and all cognitive processes should be understood as, something which is distributed between individuals, their colleagues, and their material artifacts, tools, and their semiotic resources, so that you expand the unit of analysis of learning, for instance, and you start to look at who learns in a different way. It's not just the individual, but something like a functioning activity system which learns.
You use the term